First phase of the project will complete in 5 years, that is 2030. So we have less than 5 years to do a countermeasure. We should look for more than one countermeasures. One, I'm leaving out the diplomatic channel and the other methods to the ambassador, who is the right person to answer. But then technically we have possibilities to build multiple ways, multiple dams or similar cascading aspects to minimize the flow.
Did India not see this coming? Or have we no cards left to play against a China which not only poses a military threat, but is now playing the water card? Or, as Arunachal Pradesh Chief Minister Pema Khandu called it, the ticking water bomb, warning that China could use this as a weapon. The $167.8 billion dam that China proposes to build over the Brahmaputra River in Tibet, known as the Yalung Tsampo River in China, the Chinese Premier Li Qiang announced a groundbreaking ceremony just days ago, could see a huge environmental risk to Arunachal and possibly Bangladesh. It raises three questions. Is water the new frontier of warfare? Is India's water security at risk? Will it escalate geopolitical tensions between Delhi and our powerful neighbor, with border tensions still not completely unresolved? Neither India's Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar nor Defence Minister Rajnath Singh minced their words at the Shanghai Cooperation Agreement meet, calling out China's proxy, Pakistan's role in the Pahalgam terror attack. Despite the tough talk, after a 5-year hiatus since the 2020 Galwan clash, India will start issuing visas to Chinese tourists. The Kailash Mansarovar pilgrimage has resumed. So have special representative boundary talks. The Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi arrives in Delhi in a couple of months. And now Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who has successfully concluded a landmark visit to the UK, pulling off a hard-nosed free trade agreement, may have pried the Maldives out of China's grasp. He's the chief guest for their 75th anniversary celebrations, will head to China for the SCO summit in late August. A meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping is probably on the cards. And this is the man that is seeking to dominate not just the 10-member ASEAN grouping, but with Russia entangled in Ukraine, the SCO as well. Hello everyone, I'm Neena Gopal. Welcome to Global Express, where we examine issues which have a direct impact on India and its neighborhood. Do click on the New Indian Express website and the Global Express icon and subscribe. Talking to us today is Dr. Nithiyanandam, Professor and Head of the Geospatial Research Programme at Takshashila Institution, one of India's foremost experts in geospatial intelligence. He's been tracking China's infrastructure building along the India-China border for some time now. Welcome, Professor Nithiyanandam. First, Dr. Nithiyanandam, let's first look at China's mega dam. The dam that the Arunachal Chief Minister is calling a ticking time bomb, a water bomb. The dam that the Chinese spokesperson, however, said will not be a threat to India and Bangladesh. Now, it's got 5 cascade power stations, Doctor. It will be the biggest hydropower project in the world. It's not the only one. There are a series of other hydropower and infrastructure projects all along the Brahmaputra. So what makes you've raised questions over whether China has the technological capability to construct a dam such as this. Why? Could you spell out your concerns? Because China has built a similar dam on similar lines before, hasn't it? The Three Gorges Dam. What impact did that have on water flow?
So you've asked 2-3 stuffs together. So I'll start from like whether China has has capability to build dam in this particular region. So as you rightly pointed out, the current world largest dam exists in China. That's Three Gorges Dam, right? So the dam that we are expecting is expected to be the 3 times the size of Three Gorges Dam. But
I see.
The Three Gorges Dam is located in a completely different terrain and completely different space where, thereafter the dam also on the downstream, you have a larger part of China and then it flows to other countries. Whereas here, the dam is proposed on a place where within few hundred, let's say less than 100 of kilometers, you will get international boundary. Because why I'm saying less than 100, because it is not sure, it is unclear at this moment where this dam is going to be exactly. So within, very close to international's boundary, creating such dam in a very fragile zone where earthquakes are evident. It happened in the past. It is an earthquake prone zone, it is in landslide prone zone, and more importantly, the ecosystem over there is very fragile, and the habitation is also less. So building a dam in this area, in a remote area like this, at that massive scale, is a challenging task. But then it is also discussed that this dam could be a run of a river, or during it can use a complete different technology, let's say using big tunnels and things like that, rather than a conventional way of building big dam, like carrying so much of water in the reservoir and so on. So this could be a different project, right? But then whatever project it could be, a dam at this scale, and with previous check dams in the previous streams of Yarlung Sangpo, will definitely have an impact on the downstream in both construction phase as well as the post construction phase. So, and then it is it is perceived as a bomb because the kind of altitude it stays. Like if you can look at this presentation, like this is a 3D model of the Yarlung Sangpo and thereafter Brahmaputra. You can see it's more like the difference over 2 kilometer exists from the Yarlung Sangpo's Great U Bend and thereafter when it enters India, right? In this case,
Yeah.
it's literally like a bomb, and we all know whether the quantity of water is of 5%, 10%, 15%, because many different hypotheses exist and the studies are also outdated. So when despite the quantity of water, the force it can derive at the end by if it is released at a particular thing where people studies kinetic energies and potential energies can able to understand it better how it is different. So this literally impacts the downstream areas, if not to the entire Brahmaputra basin, at least it can impact the areas which is immediately on the downstream. So that
So,
is why this dam
Professor,
is very important.
so if I
Yeah,
just may button for a minute, Professor, you're basically saying that terrain is a problem because it is quake prone, size, and there is instability there. There have been previous quakes in that area. So there is a logistical challenge, obviously, because it's of the location, and the design of the dam itself is also, quite I mean, if it's going to be so large and so big, it's going to be the biggest dam ever built. Why have these concerns not been addressed by China? Because China's, when India raised it, China actually said that it doesn't affect the water flow. But does it, what about the
right, right.
seismic angle?
Right. So let me explain it quickly through a couple of slides. This is a slide where the major earthquakes happened in just 2024 and 25. You can see the number of incidents happen in the cluster. So this is one of a recent incident happened in Shigatse Dingri, where we have witnessed multiple higher magnitude of earthquakes happened in this area. And then this is the natural fault line where it exists, and thereafter the Yarlung Sangpo turns towards flowing south. So, the challenge of this is like you have disasters, which are the area is prone, and like let's say landslide area. So you can see the landslide is also prone in this area. You can see there's particularly red thereafter entering it. So you have disaster and you have higher precipitation that you can see it in this diagram. As soon as it turns towards south, you could see the kind of climatic condition that exists in this region is having heavy precipitation. So the natural weathering process is already troubling the terrain at large, that you can see things like this. In this image, if you zoom in closely, you can see a lot of landslides happening all across the area. This is one of a recent image of last week. You can see how many landslides are happening around this, because this is the deepest canyon in the world, where it's surrounded by this much of vegetation. The red you are seeing is actually vegetation. This is
I
processed
see.
remote sensing data. That's why it is red. The white ones are the clouds. Ignore that. But then if you zoom in, you can see all this branches kind of thing. Those are lands which are slipped. So those are
I see.
lands which are shaved, and then those soil have dropped into this deep canyon. So given the complexity in this terrain, this is a very very fragile zone to build on. That is one. Second thing is, we like, if we see that how they behaved in existing bigger dams that they have. I'm not going for an example in Mekong or anywhere else. I'm looking at how they behaved when Shigatse Dingri earthquake happened. What was the scenario in those dams? The waters were released right from the reservoirs, so they emptied it, and they also acknowledged some of their dams were damaged during the process. Those dams are not there on a fragile situation like what we are expecting in Medong. Those are all in relatively stable topography, and those are all in place where the force is not that much. There's no gradient of water that is going to flow, or there is not much of rainfall which is collected over there. But despite the fact, when an earthquake happened, the waters were released, right?
Ah,
So the dam
okay.
got damaged. So imagine this place
This is
here,
the
whatever
earlier
technology.
dam. This is the earlier dam which
Right.
is built there.
Right. And we can't expect a technology similar to what we have seen in Three Gorges here, as I deliberately said earlier. This is going to be a different thing. You may not find a bigger reservoir like this. Maybe it is tunnel with a small reservoir and so on, just to alter it for a short time. Nevertheless, doing anything over there will definitely have an impact on the downstream. It is I don't know how to put it, because any construction, even if a small construction happens anywhere, even if it is a check dam, there is a impact on the downstream. The construction residuals and all those things are naturally carried away to the downstream, even if it is a small check dam. When this kind of large dams are built on this particular area, irrespective of the technology, it has the impact on the downstream area during the construction phase. As I said, the impact is in a different form when it is completed.
So
So
you're basically
definitely it
saying
will
that
have
if they
impact.
build, you're basically saying that if they build, if they start building the dam itself, that could also have an impact on the water flow of
Right.
the Brahmaputra.
So it if they build dam, definitely it will. We are not talking about a scenario of stopping a water, because it is very difficult to hold water in this area for a longer time. It is a matter of few days one can hold, not months and things, years. But then even that few days can alter the situation on the ground, because the downstream, or what you can say, the ecology is dependent on a particular pattern. So the species which are living and the other living organism which are dependent on this water on the downstream are adjusted to a particular pattern and a period. So anything during the process or post process, if it is altered a bit, that will definitely create a new challenge on the downstream. That affects the ecological balance that we call ecological imbalance.
What about this, the time frame? What is the time frame we're looking at? Because the announcement of this mega dam was made by the Chinese Prime Minister at a groundbreaking ceremony, right? Just a couple of days ago. So, did they give the countries downstream, like India and Bangladesh, and the countries in the Mekong Delta, any kind of a date at which the
What
construction
we
could
know from
begin?
open domain is the first phase of the project will complete in 5 years, that is 2030. So we have less than 5 years to do a countermeasure. But then this is not just going
What
to
would
end in
that?
a first
What would
phase.
that counter? What would that countermeasure be, Professor?
Right. That we should look for more than one countermeasures. One, I'm leaving out the diplomatic channel and the other methods to the ambassador, who is the right person to answer. But then technically, we have possibilities to build multiple ways, multiple dams or similar cascading aspects to minimize the flow. One, and also to build a reservoir where I think we planned it at Upper Siang, one, and then another one in the lower Siang basin. So if we can build those dams, it can minimize the impact. And more importantly, we need to look at alternate options other than building a dam. If there is a possibility of similar tunneling or deviating it, without causing impact to the ground. Any of this will definitely cause an impact. I'm saying without causing maximum impact, we should look for options where it can cause minimum impact and to avoid major disaster at the time of floodings and earthquakes where during the construction or the post construction process.
So, Professor, what you're basically saying that is that India and China should work together, and that we should accept that such a dam that China intends to build, that we don't actually block that, but we take countermeasures further downstream within India to build check dams. Or is that what you're saying?
In my opinion, we don't have a chance to block it. On the technical front, diplomatic channels are different, but then technical front, I think we have very limited options to do anything because they are upper riparian state and the water is being collected on the region. So we are showing our concern more than just India. I believe Bangladesh should also have a similar and more concern as they are known for poor water management and pollution on this river system. So the extreme downstream will have more toll than the upper thing. And luckily for India, we as we know that when it comes to the catchment area in terms of precipitation, I'm not talking about the area that it covers on the ground, where we see that maximum amount of rainfall is fed by our own sources. In that case, we may manage, but then any of this will have consequences on the downstream also. First is like Bangladesh should work with India on this and to put the concern together rather than taking an assurance from the upstream guy as nothing will happen. Because I'm sure any of this process, everybody knows there will be an impact, right? And so it's responsibility of Bangladesh to work with us, and probably together the concerns need to be put up to upstream. And I'm sure our people are doing that. And if that is the case, and then we need to say this is a challenging aspect. The dam may not be necessary at this stage, but if China is adamant in constructing a dam on this, I think they're pursuing it step by step. So if that is the case, then we are left with creating alternate options rather than approaching and fighting with the upstream nation.
But also the other point basically is that more than water, I mean, for the China, it's all about power, isn't it? Because it says that it's basically to provide power and electricity to Xinjiang, I mean China's Tibet, and tapping renewable energy resources. Is that correct? I mean, is that the way that you should read it, or is it both water and power?
See, I see this. If you look at it, all the other dams China has constructed, right? It is for more than one purpose. Power is obviously the main ultimate goal of any projects. But then, other than power, also they supported inland navigation. It prevented floods on the downstream. But in this case, there is no other objective than taking power out of this project. And then second one is possible usage of as a tool to trouble the downstream countries. These are the
Yeah,
only
that
two.
is very interesting. That is actually the point I was going to get to, Professor.
Right. So if you look at other mega projects, there are multiple things. But there is here the options are only for power because it is in the fag end and there is no downstream China part left over here. And then there is a chance of weaponizing, as I said. Now, why they are doing it? The renewable energy in this area is less tapped. And I say in this area, the Tibetan plateau is relatively less tapped compared to other part of China that I put out in Geospatial Bulletin earlier also. Now, there are several projects out of last 5-year plan which was discussed to tap the renewable energy of this place. It's not just hydro. There are solar projects, there are wind, there are geothermal, all are planned. And in a recent geospatial bulletin also I've pointed out, the solar project is extensively spread across Tibet Autonomous Region. So that is again going in a bigger scale. Let's say 60 megawatts, 100 megawatts plants are coming up in many parts of Tibet. It's already happening. So if it is said as a pure project to tap renewable energy source of Tibet and it will be spent for the development of Tibet, I doubt that because you have other options to do in Tibet. Whereas this could be an option that they generate electricity here that may be transported. Now I am not getting into the question of how much transmission loss will be there, but what I can say is after looking at some of the data sets the transmission grids are established, smart grids are established. So I think they have sorted out all those things. Since there is not much of discussion and literature exists on these minute aspects, those need to be looked at in excess. We are still believing like the capabilities are limited. But when you look at it, the transportation grids are exist, roads are there, the electricity grids are there, smart grids are connected, which is widely spread across. Probably the technology is also matured over a period of time. It may be transported to other areas also, right?
So,
But
Professor,
it is not a pure project for Tibet Autonomous Region. That's what we could perceive
yeah,
it.
yeah, exactly. So it's not limited just to the Tibet Autonomous Region. It will probably, benefit and other parts of China as well. But the big question
Right.
is, I mean, you've raised a lot of issues about the topography. You've raised issues about the construction. About the impact that it could have on everything else. What about the water flow to into India from the Brahmaputra? I mean, you've said that most of it comes from rainfall, and on that side there isn't as much water. But is that why they're looking at, I mean,
Not measured it by myself in my researches that whether the maximum fed comes from Indian source, but that's how the literature says. The existing literature on this topic describes so. So, but then the precipitation data also suggests a similar fact. That's what we could able to perceive it. But secondly, to conclude that we need to have a larger understanding of this, data set. We need to measure it repeatedly. We need to look at historical data sets to see pattern and also. But the only thing I would like to say here is the interruption will be there on the flow, but it is
I
not
see.
something which can be deviated. So interruptions obviously happens when you stop water and release it after 1 or 2 days. Those things are always there in this. But then since if it is a run of a river project, if it is passing through tunnels, perhaps a minor disruptions will be there, but not a major ones. But then pollution due to that is inevitable, and the subsequent consequences also inevitable.
So what Pema Kandu said is absolutely correct. This is a water bomb because if China does build a dam and hold off on the water flow, it could affect the Brahmaputra, it could affect the water flow into Arunachal Pradesh and the Mekong Basin and Bangladesh. So you have, of course, called for a joint sort of action from India and Bangladesh, which I think is very unlikely given the fact that Bangladesh is in the state that it is. But what can India do? Because I mean, if this is 300 billion kilo kWh of
Yeah.
of power, electricity annually is what they're projecting. Would it suit India's purposes if it actually worked with China on this and reached out to China rather than allowing
See,
China
there are
to?
very limited information available in open domain on what exactly the measures India has taken to counter it. Is there anything that taken to work along with China, or to efforts to stop the project completely? As we all know, the data sets were asked, like the flow data, which was stopped post Galwan, was asked to resume, and then the once we get a data, we'll try to prevent the maximum damages, and we'll get little more time to prepare for the disaster response in the downstream. So this is all we know. We don't know what exactly other options India has attempted or India has in this present context. But definitely it's a ticking bomb, but not for the entire Brahmaputra basin, I guess. What I perceive from the possible implications through geospatial analysis is perhaps it may impact the immediate areas which are there. Of course, Arunachal Pradesh may have an impact, and the different infrastructure which we have built, or the settlements which are located around it, will get impact. Because if you compare a topography, if it is right at Yarlung Sangpo's U bend and thereafter, those are basically deep canyons. So the any possible settlement with China planning to build will be on above the canyon. The depth is naturally given. That is not the case when you move further down and down, where the people are living around the banks of the river and so on. So those will get impact. We need to have a plan B to to see a situation when the construction is going, and how we can minimize the impact. But at the same time, we also realize the relocation of people and even for clearing lands for these areas are getting challenging. But I think that we need to look at the policies, need to look into those things when it comes to national security.
Well, very good on you, Professor, for even publicizing this matter, because clearly this is China wielding the big stick. I mean, the dragon breathing fire. We haven't been singed as yet, but it is making a very vital decision on a vital, important water resource that impacts India without taking India into confidence at the moment. So it's part of, I suppose, the greater geopolitical game. Thank you very much, Professor
Thank
Nithiyanandam, for
you.
joining, for
Thank
coming
you,
to
Nidhi.
us with this incredible maps and information that you've shared with our viewers. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.